Okay, welcome back to Breakfast Daily. Now, of course, it's time for the news review segment for today. And before I introduce my guests, let's just take a look at some of the headlines by way of print media. And I'll start, of course, with the Daily Graphic. Now, the Daily Graphic has on this front page here, Accra under water again. So the image you see there is not edited. It's real. This happened in Accra. So these are portions of the Odon covered by flood waters after yesterday's rain. So that's what you see over there. Really, really sad. Really, really sad. And this is not even during the rain. This is hours after the rain. That's what you see on your screen right now. Moving on, military family unveiled statue in honor of Major Mahama. It was a sad, sad event. Of course, once the unveiling was done, there was a lot of crying. And it was just too sad for me. Most of us even shed a tear just remembering the incident. It's been about 2 years and still there's not been a conclusion to the prosecution. GRA intercepts 5 container loads of rosewood. They were headed for Tema Port. Interesting. Page 16 has the full details. And finally, police to hand spot fines to indisciplined drivers. Hashtag WAI, we are getting somewhere. Ghanaian Times, election of MMDCEs, national referendum set for December 10. And there's the Minister for Local Government and Rural Development, Haji Alima Mahama. She has a picture on the front page in respect, of course, of the MMDCE elections and referendum for that matter. Page 16, heavy rainfall floods parts of Accra. And also another story here says, statue in honor of Major Mahama unveiled. We'll always use FIFA preferred grass, Wembley CEO assures. And finally, 80 liquid waste drivers, operators arrested for causing public nuisance. Moving on, the Chronicle newspaper. The Chronicle. Minority demands publication of short report. So we'll be looking at that story shortly. And also, Major Mahama's statue unveiled. How Forex operator was shot dead. Robbers wore helmets with police inscription. The full story is on page 3 this morning of the Chronicle. Also, in the Chronicle, new twist on Catherine Afeku. So take a look at the Chronicle and get the full details of same. Moving on, the new crusading guide. FDA destroys 4152 or 4,152 bottles of codeine. NDC to reject 2020 results. Hints. Full details on pages 3 and 10 of the new crusading guide. And also fake pastors hot as MPs call for laws against them. How do you determine a fake pastor? Honorable members of parliament. This is strange to me. Highway traders to demonstrate against ADMA over ejection notice. So this is what we have on the front page of the new crusading guide. Now moving on, the Business Finder says here, protect, grow local manufacturing firms. Chamber of Commerce, PF tells government, of course, as the Private Enterprise Federation. And also more cash for MMDAs, full details on page 2. And on page 5, railway growth to hit 6.9% of GDP. And finally, ABC News. So finally, by way of print, let's take a look at the ABC newspaper. It says here, Ghana card registration exercise, 1.2 million citizens captured so far. Another story here says, have confidence in state institutions, state housing boss urges Ghanaians abroad. So that's on the front page of the ABC News. And finally, roadmap on election of MMDCEs revealed in Accra. We'll be taking a look at that story shortly. And let's take a look at some online stories. Of course, I'll go straight to citynewsroom.com. Now, our first story on citynewsroom.com relating to the flooding situation, sad situation. Every day we say floods during the dry season, nothing happens. Sodona residents charge at government demand permanent solution to flooding. Of course, it's in their interest, and it's in the interest of the entire nation. World Bank to fund Accra's re-engineering project to tackle floods. And this coming from the Ghana Meteor. Remember, I said it will cost, according to them, they're being funded by some $200 million, but the Works and Housing Minister says it will cost about 7 billion Ghana cedis. So $200 million maybe would translate into some 1.2 billion or so. So what's the difference in figures? U.S. Forest Service cautions government over planned bauxite mining in Etua Forest. There's also another story here which says 78 fecal waste truck drivers arrested for protesting illegally. Sad. Really, really sad. And finally, youth who attacked me must be arrested. Kratchi West DCE. We've also called for the arrest of these people, but hey, country we live in. City Business News, your most informative business website, has on here that the government will not accept cash for service delivery by 2020. We are going paperless. Is this entirely possible, not to accept cash at all for services? 2020 is just 2 years away. Actually, it's just next year. Anyway, GCB Bank to expand to other West African countries. Interesting. Now you're a big bank. You've swallowed some of the banks. So, yeah, let's see you expand. Let's see how things go. Anyway, welcome back. So it's still Breakfast Daily right here on City TV. I'll just introduce my guest for this morning. I've been joined by Abraham Amaliba, who is a member of the NDC legal team. Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Daily.
Good morning. Good morning to your viewers as well.
It's good to have you here. It's been a while.
Yes, I'm back. It appears I was exiled for some time.
And
if I'm back,
we are glad to have you back.
Must be a prodigal son who is back.
We are glad to have you back. We'll slaughter a fat cow for you.
No problem.
Now, moving on, we've also been joined by a government spokesperson, Eric Amakuchum. He also joins us on Breakfast Daily. Good morning, Eric. Welcome back to Breakfast Daily.
Good morning, Ike. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Now, of course, the flooding situation. Where were you yesterday during the rains?
Well, anyway, to start with, good morning to all the viewers. I haven't been here for a while as well. Good morning to my friend, Amaliba. We haven't met for a while, isn't it?
That's true.
Yeah, he's been avoiding me. Anyway, I think that it's really a sad situation what happened yesterday. And it's even more so because, we've been having this conversation, I think, for a very long time. Even when I was a child, we had issues to do with Alajo or Donna, all sorts of things. And I think that the issues have actually become more graver as the years have gone on. I actually was caught in the rain because I was around 37, and just as I got to the traffic light before the hospital, I realized that it was going to rain. So I actually now was turning back home, but then of course I got caught into the melee and all of those in the traffic, and the people actually getting stuck in the rains and all of those things. So that's terrible. Government, of course, it's government's responsibility to make sure that we have a city that is fit for purpose, that would make everybody safer. And of course, the necessary investment that, as far as I'm concerned, is being done with the silting and dredging, and some works that's been done, some that's already started. But the truth of the matter is that I think it goes beyond that. I think that we all have some responsibility, government, of course, but the citizenry, our engineers who actually pass off these roads. Because, for instance, if you have a Minister of Works and Housing, for instance, there's absolutely no reason why he necessarily would have to be a qualified engineer, for instance. So there are people who work within these areas who are technical people who would pass off these roads? What are town and country planning people doing? Issues to do with sanitation. We've been talking about plastics for a long time. The indiscipline, so even when there's a certain action either from the local authorities or government to sanitize a particular area just because either people have built on waterways or people have encroached or the activities, human activity that is hindering the free flow of the water and all of those things, you would always get a pushback. So it's almost as if that when we are not in distress, everything is fine. When it happens that these things happen, then people start clamoring for change and actions and all that. But then it needs a certain concerted effort.
Okay.
I know for a fact that there are works underway within the
Okay,
the
Eric,
city.
what are we doing different? Every year it rains, it floods, people die. Right now, a government that you speak for is in office. What are we doing different?
Well, even as I speak, there's this garage project that is undergoing, that is being sponsored by the World Bank. The ongoing dredging along the Odo and certain parts of the city, what's happening in Kumasi, for instance. Work is being done. But even for some areas where traditionally you would not have issues to do with flooding, have started flooding. So even what it means is that the dredging and the silting alone is probably not a solution. We need to look at even the total redesign or planning of the city. We haven't been proactive over the period, but the thing is that we need to start from somewhere. Okay. Now, because the city is already built, you would have challenges. Some really decisive actions would have to be taken in terms of maybe moving people or making sure that the waterways are free so that the water would actually flow. But then going forward, so you have a plethora of challenges where, for instance, if you want to even go for a permit, like to build a building permit, for instance, it takes so long that people really do not even want to go through the process. Now, it happens that people start building and then it happens that they're actually not in the right places so it's almost like a multifaceted problem. Sanitation, people doing their own drains.
So that's the others. But as a government, I mean.
But I've told you what government is doing in the interim.
You're talking about the Greater Accra Resilient Project has not yet commenced.
Yeah,
and we are 3 years into your government.
I know. But I'm
so
saying
what's been done differently?
Over the last 2.5 years or so, we are all seeing that some works have been done in terms of some drainage systems across the city. The dredging of the Odo and the desilting.
That is not different from what was done previously.
But the thing is that...
And change has come.
No, but you see, sometimes when we have these conversations, we have to also put it in perspective.
That's fine, go on.
This city has been probably, let's say, 100 years. Okay. You have had properties springing up left, right, and center. It would never take 2.5 years to change the whole engineering makeup of the city. We have to be honest with ourselves. I'm saying that whilst government has a responsibility, we also have individual responsibilities as well. It's unfortunate that anybody will lose their lives or property in a situation like this, especially when, like I said, it's a perennial challenge. But we need a certain concerted strategy to be able to deal with it. From the populace, from the government, for instance. Even what is the congestion, what are the reasons for congestion in the city? I have always maintained that there is absolutely no reason why we should allow certain like intercity transport from coming even to the city. You need to make sure that that happens at the periphery. Now, when it happens like that, by dint of commercial activity and enterprise, people would actually move those commercial activities to those areas. That involves some kind of planning. Sanitation, what are we doing with the plastics, for instance? We have to take pragmatic decisions. Recently, I think about 2-3 weeks ago, when there was a certain agitation that we need to make take some decisive actions on plastics. You had a lobby coming in and saying that people will lose jobs. So when people are encroaching on waterways or are sitting on the railways or doing all sorts of things and they have to be moved, there's always a certain conversation that a certain human face. But we are all affected by it. For instance, my son's school, right, had to be shut down. The police actually had to go and rescue them. The walls broke. You understand? So it's not even, it is not political. It is also personal. People are affected by it. People have lost their properties. People have lost their lives and all of those things. It's a concerted effort. Government is committed to doing its own in terms of what has happened, what is ongoing in the silting and dredging and creating new drainage system and all that.
I think so far what you have told us is that government has not done anything different to save the situation.
I'm coming there. But it has come to almost a certain realization that even the traditional areas that was flooded, we're not flooding. It's flooding today. Now East Legon is flooding.
So things are getting worse, and still government has not done anything different.
No, but the thing is, what do you mean government has not done
anything? Government has not done. Let me give an example. Let me come in. I personally, I was in the storm drain in Abofu. I was literally inside the storm drain. I went with Jifa. I was inside the storm drain. Now, what we realized is that the storm drain that was constructed by Interbetin, what the construction or what the company did was that they created slabs and they put it on the sides of the waterway to allow water coming from the mountain areas to flow through. And what has happened is that the slabs have now caved into the storm drain. So the storm drain that was supposed to serve as a pathway for the water to go is now becoming an obstruction, or it is now an obstruction. Now the slabs have caved into the storm drain. Water is unable to flow. The worst situation is that now, since the slabs were just put on the soil, now the soil is now forming silt inside the storm drain, creating more floods. And this has been the situation for the past 5 years, and absolutely nothing has been done about this situation.
Yeah, but I'm saying that we have challenges across the city. But the issues to do with flooding, for instance, even areas that were desilted last week, now that it's rained yesterday, the silt has actually come back in there.
But where do you think the silt is coming from?
It's
if we are not at least putting these slabs back,
but
the silt is coming from the soil that is entering back into the storm drains.
I don't want to go into advantage, but I'm saying that even we have to be realistic ourselves. To redesign the whole drainage system in Accra will not take 2.5 years. To make sure that Accra is not prone to flooding will take a certain more decisive strategy in terms of even getting the buy-in of the various stakeholders. For instance, you have the city authorities, the local authorities, you have the various commercial activities that is ongoing within the city, people who are building, what we do with our town and country planning, for instance. So it's a bigger conversation. I'm saying that this is not a matter to say that, okay, because it rained yesterday, and today government would have all the answers to the issues to do with the flooding, because areas that I, for instance, know that had never flooded is flooding. And I'm saying that it's also a responsibility of the people who pass off some of these projects. You understand? So we have technical people in this country. We have people that we give contracts to. They construct these roads, and within a few months or so, when it starts raining, we realize that what they have actually given us is not fit for purpose.
So in the part of government, what they are doing is dredging.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Okay. Government is doing all of these things, but it's almost as if
all of what things? All I'm seeing is dredging.
Beyond dredging, what's being done? Some drainage systems have been built, even where you're talking about, for instance,
a drainage system has been built.
For instance, around the Ajigano area going towards the school junction, for instance, I've seen new roads being done.
Which flooded yesterday.
Yes, but the road was being done.
So the passing off happened under your administration then?
What's happening now?
You said passing off happens when they are constructing roads and these drainages.
No, but the road is being constructed as we speak. It's not been finished. It's not 100% done. But I'm saying that because of the situation, in the way that it rains for 50 minutes, for instance, or just an hour, and then you have the whole city, for instance, going under water. It means that there's something fundamentally wrong with even how we are developing, and we need to have new solutions to this problem.
I'm sure I'll come back to you. Council.
If I were your producer this morning, this topic wouldn't have been discussed. It's a case of déjà vu. I, being a panelist on TV programs, have discussed this time without number on several networks. You see, when we come here to discuss issues, it is our expectation that the government of the day will listen to the various views and make them practicable by applying those suggestions we have made. But here we are, still discussing the same thing over and over again. What are we learning? Are we a people and a government that fails to learn anything from disasters or from misfortunes? Are we a nation of such people? The first rainfall in this year, which led to some flooding, the MP for Kole Klote, Zenato Rollins, if you remember, indicated that part of the problem was the failure to desilt the Odona, because for the whole year it hasn't happened. The desilting wasn't there. Then I asked the question, do we have city authorities who know the nature of the rainfall pattern? If you are groping in the dark, you know that this day will come. If you've lived in Accra for the last 3 years, you know that this day will come. So, when your mayor of Accra went to a church and announced to the whole country that Accra is the most cleanest city now, and it was cleaner than some 3 years ago, didn't he know that there was a perennial flooding issue and that Odona needs to be desilted? Now, he's talking about the desilted. He's talking about the desilted. I'll come there, as if you've done anything good. Was it not only 3 weeks ago? Can you imagine these people? You know that this is a country, a city capital, which is always on water. You know that. And you also know the rainy seasons when it begins. You know the peak period. I am not going to be telling you this. You should know. It should be something which, and you are now desilting 3 weeks ago. Do you know the depth of that Odona? It's 6 feet down. Now you are desilting. You've not gotten to there's still some debris. So that explains why you have the Odona filling to its capacity and then spilling over onto streets. The streets are not the real issue. Because if your drainage system is good, your street will not flood. If your drainage system, because even if the rain falls on the street alone, it will run into the drainage. If it falls in the drainage alone, it won't come onto the street. This is common sense. So I'm not an engineer, but I'm just using common sense. So it's not about the streets. For you to say that people have passed them and they are more trouble.
But they're part of a drainage system.
You don't understand what I'm saying. I'm saying that your drainage system is choked. And you just started desilting just some 3 weeks ago. And I'm telling you that the issue is about the drainage system. If you had desilted, the drainage system would have been able to absorb and take the water. And your road wouldn't have flooded. That's the common sense approach I'm talking about.
That is not true, because that's not the only place that had flooded.
To be fair, Zenato Rollins was also saying that she spoke to the city authorities before the rainy season started happening, and then she asked them to start the desilting, but several attempts and nothing happened.
But dredge masters are dredging as we speak.
They are dredging when it started raining.
No,
it's her problem. It's what Zenato is saying.
It's not true.
Okay,
but the thing is that this is not the only
let him finish. I'll come back to you.
Actually flooded. There are so many parts of the city that has nothing to do with Odona.
But you know the water is very, very connected. So let's allow him to finish. Council, please go on.
Go ahead.
You made inaccurate statements here, and I kept my cool. Learn from me.
That's all.
All right, you're my senior brother. I'll learn from you. Let's go.
So the issue has to do with the fact that our city authorities sleep on the job. If you know that this is an issue that bothers the people in Accra, And once we put in government in place, it is the duty of the government to seek the welfare needs of the people.
Briefly, do you feel there's something that maybe could have been done during the previous administrations that would have maybe provided a lasting solution so we wouldn't be here today discussing this matter that you said you have discussed several times?
I have said time without number. If governments change, they change and go away with the old. Probably somebody voted because the NDC didn't do that.
Very well.
So now, today, the person expects a much better, improved service delivery. So when you send me back there, I won't go back there with you.
Very well.
The people have spoken. We are talking about today.
Very well.
We had twin disasters under the NDC. Twin disasters, fire and floods. When these people are in position and those things happen, go check the things they said. Just go check. They are in power today. Has anything changed? You've borrowed close to 90 billion Ghana cedis.
Anyway.
What are you doing to ensure? And you know, most of these places, when they flood,
you're wrapping up.
It hits the downtrodden. Yesterday I was watching it was this people
around the
outdoor area who were living in caves, living in chaos and all those things. They are much affected.
Yeah.
So what is the need for voting for a government if you cannot address their needs and provide the services for which they voted for?
Thank you very much. Now we'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we'll read your messages. Remember that you send your messages with the hashtag Breakfast Daily. Of course, you can send it through the WhatsApp line 0550 585832. We'll be right back.
Spend 30 minutes every weekday catching up with all the trending social media conversations of the day. If you tweet it, we'll read it. We might just even Skype you. 30 minutes is all it takes, so use the hashtag 30minutes on social media to catch our attention. Join the most interactive social media TV show weekdays at 5 p.m. only on City TV.
Go. Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to Breakfast Daily right here on City TV. Now, I'll read a few of your messages, but of course, I'm joined by a member of the NDC legal team, Abraham Amaliba, and not forgetting government spokesperson, Eric Amwakuchum. Now, let me get a few of your messages here. Al Hassan in WA says, there cannot be an effective solution to perennial flooding if we don't change our attitudes towards sanitation in the nation. Every effort is being made by the government to deal with the situation, but our attitudes. So his regards to Dr. Hafiz bin Sali Abba, West Regional Minister. Now moving on. Good morning. Wilberforce asks what the Ghana Institute of Planners are doing to help our national capital from overflooding. Well, no one here can speak to that. Walanyo in Accra, Walanyo in Akutia says Accra floods will not get solution today or tomorrow. The gutters are all choked. Houses are built on water-locked areas. So what next do you expect when the rainy season starts? It will definitely find its way. The flooding in Accra alone is enough reason to take the capital to another region. we missed the opportunity to tackle this problem at Circle during the construction of the interchange. It was an opportunity to kill several birds with one stone. But the political expediency, Mahama and his government ignored. But for political expediency, Mahama and his government ignored this. So this is the result we are experiencing. This coming from Walanyo in Akwatia. Farouk writes from Tamale. He says, I blame government and town and country planning for not making sure people built on accepted areas. The floods in the capital is long overdue. Hashtag Breakfast Daily. Another message from Frederick Comey. He says, the issue of flooding in this country is not only the responsibility of the government, but rather it's a collective responsibility by the government and we, the citizens. So that's what he has to say. Thank you very much, Frederick Comey. Now we're moving on to another story in respect of the anti-vigilantism law. So the Chronicle newspaper has it here, minority demands publication of short report. And I'm reading from page 3 of the Chronicle. It says, okay, so it says the time has come to put an end to the phenomenon of politically related violence. The only way in our system to begin to deal with such a situation is through the work of the Commission of Inquiry. Thankfully, I got 4 responsible Ghanaians of independent spirit who agreed to serve on the commission. I hope the findings are recommendations of the Emile Short Commission, or findings of the recommendations of the Emile Short Commission will enable us to chart a path of ending politically related violence in our country. So these were the exact words of the President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo on February 21st, 2019, when he delivered the State of the Nation's address. However, the President, 3 weeks after the Short Commission had presented its report on March 14, laid the vigilantism and its related offences bill in the House through the Attorney General. Now, the bill, which is expected to be at its consideration stage today, according to the President, is an attempt to end politically related violence in the country through the disbandment of political vigilante groups. But the minority is not happy with the development, and its members are of the view that the Emile Short Commission Report, which was specifically set up to deal with the vigilantism activities, should be published by the President before the passage of the bill. So I think James Agaga, who is a ranking member of Defense and Interior Committee in Parliament, and also Mr. Yunus Safusini, member of Parliament for Tamale Central. So there are several people who are calling for this. The Minority Chief Whip as well, Ibrahim Ahmed, and of course, Party Chairman for the NDC also has called for publication of the report. So I'll start with you, Amaliba, on this particular one.
You know, what occasioned the introduction of the bill in Parliament was the Ayawaso West Wogon by-election, where we saw those hooded, I'm told they are operatives of national security, mete out some violence in that by-election. People saw it as the lowest that we could go to in terms of our democracy, where people were manhandled by alleged state security operatives. And so when the pictures came out and when the videos came out, it was a disgrace, a national disgrace, that Ghana, the beacon of hope, a country that prides itself with its democracy, should go that low. And so, understandably, the President quickly put up a commission of inquiry. Now, the President gave the commission just a month. And there were some people who were of the view that 1 month was too small. I remember, I don't know, you remember the arguments for them to be able to do a thorough work. But those of us who watch the proceedings on TV came to a conclusion that the members did some good work. And so one expected that the speed with which the president put together the commission, the speed with which the commission did its work, that same speed would have been witnessed to allow the president also present the findings of the report to the whole nation. Because what happened there was now the president has introduced a bill in parliament to deal with vigilantism. And you and me know that part of the legislative process has it that whenever a commission is put in place or a committee is put in place, the findings of the committee must find space if there's legislation. The findings must find space, because the reason for which you are putting up the committee is to resolve an issue. And if there's a law, then you expect that because the law has a force element, you expect that the findings will find its way into the law. Now here we are. It's under consideration, and the commission's report is not made available to even parliamentarians. So the call for the findings of the committee to be made public so as to feed into the legislative process is a good call all over the world. In good democracies, this is how it happens. And so, fortunately, I am a member of the NDC's, this vigilante talks we are holding at Peduase. I'm a member of that committee.
Wonderful.
And at that meeting 3 days ago, we were in Peduase, it came up as well.
With the National Peace Council.
Peace Council, that we needed to have the findings made known to us. We've seen snippets, but it's not coming from the proper source. We've seen and read snippets of the reports from you people, the media. But we cannot accurately say that that is the report until it is released by the president. The president has 6 months under the constitution within which to release the report. But looking at the exigencies of the time, looking at how a lot of things are happening around vigilantism, there's a Peace Council talks, there's a law. That document is a necessary document to feed into the two discussions. And I think that the president should do.
So when such a call was made at the peace talks or the talks to disband political vigilante groups, when such a call was made, I believe such a call was made at the meeting.
Yes.
And what was the position of the NPP on same? Whether or not the president should indeed release the findings. There was a joke, and I think that one was a joke by Samuel Oku, who said that, but you've read it from various sources. And we said, also, are you admitting that that was it? Then we all laugh off. Okay. But there was a response from the chairman, Freddie Blay. He said that it was a legitimate call, but they sitting here do not have the authority. It's the president who has the authority. They will convey the request to the president. Very well.
So I think that must be taken as an MPP official. I want you to be fair to them.
Okay.
As a MPP official position on that matter.
So that's one point you reached consensus on. But at the meeting, were there points that you had divergent views on, or that you did not agree on at the Peace Council meeting to disband vigilantism?
For instance, at the tail end, where we agreed that there must be a technical committee to do some more in-depth work into it and come out with a roadmap for the disbandment of the vigilante groups. The MPP were of the view that the two political parties, that's NDC MPP, or more so they themselves, will not want to be part of the technical committee, and that the technical committee should be put together by the National Peace Council, and then they will come out with the roadmap, and then they will call all of us to a table to discuss the roadmap. We said that that is going to delay, because then when we are not part of the technical committee and we begin to see things afresh or new, we may oppose them, and that means that they will have to go back and work again. But if we were part of it, So at the end of the day, the consensus was that the Peace Council would consult the two political parties, if need be, to feed into the technical committee's work and to come out with a roadmap.
Okay, my final question to you is that should the president not release this report or the findings of the Emile Short Commission, should the president not release this, would the NDC still come out with a roadmap, or would the NDC still continue with the talks to disband vigilante groups?
Oh, we are committed. And if you are aware, on the first day of the talks, where our chairman was appearing in court, but nonetheless, we still found our way to the place. That shows the commitment. We could have said that if you are prosecuting our chairman, we wouldn't take part.
Okay.
So it is not something that we intend to boycott at all.
Very well.
We will continue to commit ourselves to the process.
Eric, on the issue of whether or not the president should release the report, there's been calls from many civil society organizations and calls, especially from the minority, that the report should be released. If not for nothing, it should be the fulcrum on which the anti-vigilantism law should be based. Do you not agree with this?
Well, I wanted to predicate my submission on the Constitution and what it says about the publishing of a report of a commission of inquiry.
We agree. We agree. There's constitutionality.
Let me make my point.
Using the Constitution as an excuse seems...
You see, the NDC is engaged in politics. They're not engaged in no commitment or conviction to get to the bottom of this vigilante issue and even disband. Because even coming from their flag bearer, who is also a former president, they say that for them, violence and causing mayhem and chaos is part of their DNA, and they've come from a revolutionary past. And that's where you made a point of boot for boot. So this is all gimmicks. They have no interest in getting to the bottom of it. To start with, the president has absolutely no option per the Constitution to either within this period and the next 6 months to release a report, or if he so decides not to issue a white paper. That has no correlation with what is happening today, where if so indeed the two parties are committed to disbanding vigilantism. And the issue of the vigilante did not start with Ayawaso West Wogon. And we have to be candid with ourselves. Even after the Ayawaso West Wogon, in their own stables in Ashanti region, when a regional party meeting was happening, somebody got killed. And this is coming from factions within the same political party, and they call themselves hawks.
But this time, a commission was set up and findings were made.
And it's because, you see, in the past, and you see, when we get this platform, a certain historical antecedent is also important, because, you see, there's a certain way of trying to even scuttle the conversation by saying that we are equalizing. We've had at least 10, 12 examples of political violence or vigilantism in the last, since 1992.
But we've never had a commission set up.
Yes,
we've never had a proposal for a law.
Exactly. It shows, that's the difference. It shows a conviction of a president who says that enough is enough. When Tripoli and, what do you call it, Abenfi West and Talensi and things happen under their watch, they said that violence begets violence. You see, sometimes let's be very open and candid with ourselves in this conversation.
But do you not agree,
between an Akufo presidency and a Mahama presidency?
Do you not agree that publishing
so when
these
they
findings...
Here, when you give them the platform and now you gag us by telling us that anything we say is meant to be an equalization, that is wrong.
Nobody has mentioned equalization. Do you not agree that publishing this report would further inform the legislature in passing this law?
But you see, I'm saying that we agree that we want to be governed by a constitution. You're a lawyer. He's a lawyer. I'm not.
And both of us know, including the President of the Republic, that there's constitutionality and there's constitutionalism. A democratic society functions better under constitutionality. So the fact that Article 280 of the Constitution says X does not mean that no matter what.
How has the not publishing of that report affected what happened in Federal in the last 3 or 4 days? How has that affected?
They are saying he was there.
No,
and
but
he says that he would have been better informed.
I know how. This is the modus operandi. It's a certain siege mentality. Let's create this thing. It's that old communist inferior tactics. Let's create this thing. Let's throw it out there and make it look like that's the reason why we are not going to conform and stick to the dictates of what this thing is meant to do. Otherwise, I don't really see the point. The point is that
I'm not a member of the NDC.
You are not answering this question.
Listen. The president is mandated
Why is he not?
by the Constitution from the very onset of the publishing, releasing of the report within a 6 months period to publish it, or if he so desires not to, issue a white paper and give out reasons why he is not going to do so. It is also, again, within the democratic dispensation that we practice for the minority to call for a publishing, or even civil society or everybody to publish it.
So why do you call us names? I
haven't called you names. I'm saying that. But to try and create a correlation and create a perception that if that report does not surface, the work that is being done by the two political parties who are showing a certain commitment that this thing is not something that will inure positively to our democracy, so they want to now stop this whole idea of political vigilantism and all that and violence that erupts when it comes to by-elections. And even that bill, by extension, is talking about land guardism and all this indiscipline and all sort of things. It is a welcome thing. Go ahead, do it, push for the various things that you want to be added to it, collaborate, and get the thing out. But if you now try to put in place, even in the very first day that the meeting will happen, the NDC got up about 3-4 times saying that they were leaving because their chairman had been called to come and answer some questions at the police station. So it's a feed dragging, putting requirements in place before they would sit and have a conversation.
No, he just admitted that irrespective of the report, they will still show.
You were here. You're here in this country where they were putting all sorts of
question.
Listen, prerequisites before they would even sit around and have a conversation. Let's add other political parties.
But today our position has been upheld.
Yeah, but yes, fine.
Today our position has been upheld.
So let's go ahead and do it.
I'm going to ask you a straight question. Are you saying that the information contained in the Emile Short Commission's report is not going to further inform the legislature to come up with a better law?
That's what he's saying.
I'm not privy to the information in the report.
Very well. I'll just read.
But never have we seen state-sponsored violence in by-elections than what we saw. And so that's why this one is of a different nature.
Of a
and so if you make it look like there are a lot of
AK-47s,
if you
and
make it look like this is the first time we have violence. This is not the first time we have. This is not the first time we have violence.
I was in about 3 West. I've been in 3 by-elections and I've seen violence.
What we saw where the state sponsored people, gave them walkie-talkie, dressed them, gave them boots, and wore them uniform, and hooded them. Since the days of Diabo to Azambuja, through God is back to Nkrumah to today, we've never seen that in police stations. It's only under this administration. It's a dent on your government.
Okay, now I want us to move on because apparently we are going to have our MMDC elections pretty shortly. Now that's something that maybe we should be very, very happy about. So before that, I'll read just one more message, and then Eric, I'm sure you might want to respond really briefly, and then we'll just go on to be fair. Okay, so from Mystic Inside in Saum Edwajiri, he says the Emile Short Commission Report must be published. The excuse that the delay is because of voluminous nature of documents is preposterous and laughable. Though the Sanitation Ministry is not a very useful ministry created by this government, they should be up and doing to save lives and property from the flood. My regards to Honorable Oliver Kevo. And okay, so that's what he has to say. So really briefly, and then we'll move on to our next story, Eric.
Well, I mean, I think that I've made my points on the publication of the report. The report, I'm sure, in due time, by the prerogative that's been given to the president, will do justice to that. Talking about sanitation, ministry, and all that, I think that it's important that we look at it from the perspective of we've been doing this thing in a particular manner for a while. I believe strongly that they still have a mandate that, given the necessary support, they'll be able to deliver. I'm not one of those people who's a pessimist.
Okay. Now let's move on to page 16 of the Ghanaian Times. It says election of MMDCEs, national referendum set for December 10. Now, according to this particular story, the Ministry for Local Government and Rural Development has announced December 10 as the date for the referendum to determine whether metropolitan, municipal and district chief executives should be elected or not in the country. Now, the referendum, which would be held alongside the district assembly elections, will seek to amend Articles 55.3 and 243.1 of the 1992 Constitution, which prevents political parties from participating in district-level elections, including the elections of MMDCEs and the powers of the president to appoint MMDCEs respectively. So, Council, I think I'll start with you on this particular story on the election of MMDCEs and the fact that a date has been set for the referendum.
Yes, this is because of the entrenched provision in the Constitution. So we need to go to a referendum, get it out of the way before. As a political party, we've not actually taken a stand on this issue yet. You would have heard our position. But I think it is something that will come up at our next meeting. The issue that is of concern is about at the district level, when you open the position to an elective position, who then will be in charge of security in that district? Our fear is that you cannot give the security architecture and structure to a partisan person to be the head of the national security. So, for instance, MPP is in power. Then in Bolga municipality, the DCE there is somebody who is an NDC man because he's gone for election and has won. If you give the security apparatus to such a person, confidence in whether or not, if the president is visiting there, will be an issue for a discussion. So it's a good thing to have people elect their DCs, because now they will be accountable to the people and no longer to the president, because you've heard, even under this administration and in the previous administration, when people are demanding for services and are agitating and demonstrating, you hear some people say, some of the DC appointees say, oh, I'm accountable to the president, and you can't do me anything. Now, that rhetoric will change.
Very well. But I want to wrap you up.
I think that in doing all this, we need to have a stakeholder discussion to iron out some of these fears that I talked about. But it's a good thing.
I think it's a solid point you made. Eric?
I would, one is again, commend the president for showing conviction. This is one of the things that he spoke about during the run-up to the elections in 2016, and he's delivered. I'm for the elections of DCs, I mean, in total. The issues to do with security, like he's mentioned, has come up by some experts and all that. But it's neither here nor there for me. In Parliament, there are people on the opposite side, in the minority, who are necessarily, by dint of what the Constitution does, are meant to know what is happening even in our national security setup. There are members who are in the Interior and Security Committee who see everything. Now, we keep crying every time that there's this thing called winner takes all in our body politics. What's the big deal about that? What's the best practice? Some of the best examples of democracy when you go to the England and the US in terms of local assemblies and everything, that is the structure people are voted for. We would have to find a way to making it work. And the thing is that once the person is accountable to the people, I believe strongly that like sociologists will tell you that there's more good in the man than bad. So I feel strongly that we can do it. We would have some initial challenges, but we can perfect the system. We're talking about sanitation and issues to do with drainage systems and enforcing the law and everything. I think that even when people are voted for, there's a certain sense of legitimacy that they can be able to marshal, right, and get the support of people to do the stuff that they are meant to do. Of course, it goes through the same, like you said, as an entrenched provision in the Constitution. It has to go through a referendum for it to be changed. But I believe strongly that if you look at the Constitutional Review Commission report, and I think that even after this, there's a lot more things that we need to do, so that our democracy will be enriched. And we would be
like release the report of the Emile Short Commission.
But that is also a constitutional matter. I mean, so in one breath, we can't pick and choose what things that we like. In another breath, because it's expedient to us, we push for changing it. It's there. I mean, if that is what we want, maybe we want to go and change that and say that immediately a report is ready, it should be published. We can do that. But once the Constitution says what it says, it's a prerogative for the president. I believe strongly that voting for our DCs and MCs will also improve the caliber of people who are interested at the local level. A lot of people, even in my friends and stuff, they're not even interested in what happens at the local level.
Anyway,
and they sit around and complain. But once we do that, I think that we'll be able to now push the development agenda.
Solid. Thank you very much. Eric Omakuchum is a government spokesperson. On the election of MMDCEs, the question is that, Article 297 gives the person who appoints the power to remove. So what happens when the president is no longer appointed and he's uncomfortable with the DC or MCE? That'll be interesting to see. Anyway, of course, we're also joined by a member of the NDC legal team, of course, Abraham Amaliba. He also joined us on News Review today. Thank you so much for sending in your messages. We'll go for a quick break and Breakfast Daily continues.